Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks so much for joining this webinar from the Brzezinski Institute here at Shenandoah University. My name is Yunus Mirza. I'm the director of the Brzezinski Institute. And the Brzezinski Institute for Global Virtual Learning collaborates with institutions of higher education around the world to explore the similarities and differences in their missions and practices, to understand the challenges that they face, and to create solutions in light of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Our academic pillar primarily consists of COIL, which is Collaborative Online International Learning. This is where a faculty from Shenandoah University works with another faculty member in another part of the world to create a module in their classes, where the domestic and international students work on a joint project. The faculty design the module together and have their students work on their projects throughout the semester virtually. Both faculty members go through a specifically designed workshop to learn the best practices of COIL virtual exchange and create an abstract of the module. Today, I'm very excited to introduce Dr. Adela, Esther, and Aurora, who will be speaking about their collaboration, language perception across borders, a COIL virtual exchange collaboration. And Dr. Adela is from Shenandoah University here in Virginia, and Dr. Esther is from ITESO University in Mexico, and Aurora is a student here also at Shenandoah. With that, I turn it over to the presenters, please.
So good morning, everyone, and thank you so very much for being here to, starting the week with us. We always know that the beginning of the week is not easy, so wherever you are and whatever time it is for you, thank you sincerely for being here. And before we started the presentation, we want to give a little bit of context of what we're going to be doing today. So, the Barsinji Institute has put together, has hosted really fantastic webinars this semester of some of them long-standing collaborations. But what we will be doing today is a little bit different. We are going, it's more limited in the scope. We're going to be talking about a one semester collaboration from two people who didn't know each other a year ago. It was not perfect, but from my perspective, it was great. It was a great time. It was really positive, precisely because of the work that the students did, and for me, because of the great companions that I had. Esther and Aurora were phenomenal. So that's a little bit of what we will be doing here today. And so I think we can go, yeah, to our next slides. Um, and maybe we should start by introducing the courses, which is the next slide. Yeah, we should introduce the courses that we chose to do this collaboration. On my end, I chose my first year seminar course called Who Gets to Speak Spanish in the US? Language Inequality and Professional Success. So just to, again, to give you a little bit more context about this course, this is part of a larger program here at Shenandoah University, the first year seminar program, where our university wants or tries to introduce our students to the global community, and also tries to support our students in the first year college, which tends to be the hardest. So all of the incoming students at Shenandoah, they have a wide variety of topics that they can choose from in this program. And my course is just one of those, one of the options that they have. The students who tend to enroll in these courses tend to be 18-year-old, and they come from all majors in all schools, from the business, education, conservatory, arts and sciences, and professional and health professions. In my case, many of them are Latinx students, they're Latinos. I would say 60, 70% are. And the ones who are not are really interested in languages. They know Spanish or they want to learn Spanish. Yeah, and so that's a little bit, so in this course, again, since we have to do quite a few things, not only introduce the topic, but also support them. We're tasked with a lot of, doing a lot of things. We have to prepare them for registration. We encourage them to go to presentations, and we do a whole lot of stuff in addition to the content. But if we were to talk about the content, why did I choose this topic? I've lived in this country for 30 years, and I'm always fascinated by how different languages are perceived in the country. So there's the perception that some languages are more sophisticated than others, and therefore those who speak those languages are more intelligent than people who speak different languages. So what this does is to promote the idea that maybe some people should be multilingual, while other people will be better served by being monolingual. And just to give you a more concrete example, when we see little children who are learning multiple languages, well, when we see children who are English speaking and are learning multiple languages, we celebrate and we say, oh my goodness, you're so smart. This is so great. But sometimes when we see Spanish speaking kids who speak Spanish at home, but then they go to school where they learn English, we see that as a problem that needs to get fixed. So this is something that always fascinated me. So what we do in my class, we look at, education policies, we look at international relationships, we look at all those elements that create the Latinx identity in this country and how it is connected with the Spanish, even though many Latinx students do not speak Spanish. So that's what we do at the beginning of the course. So once we establish what an asset it is to be multilingual and multicultural, the second part of the course is dedicated to professional success, to guide our students on how to be professional, how to be very successful professionally. And to do so, we expose them to the processes that they need to master, how to find a position, how to write a resume, how to do a job interview, how to develop the skills that are going to make them professionally success. So that's a little bit of what I do in my course. Esther?
Thank you, Adela. Good morning. I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Jonas, for the invitation. I would like to give you a brief overview of the course that I was teaching when we collaborated in this project with Adela. The name of the course that I was teaching last fall is English as a Foreign Language Advanced 1. And it is a course aimed at helping students move into the C1 level of proficiency according to the European Framework of Reference. And at this stage, at C1 level, the focus is really to help the students to become more flexible and more confident speakers in English. Not just in terms of accuracy, but also helping with fluency and ability to communicate across different contexts, from academic, personal, professional, etc. So the course is designed to develop the students' proficiency. And in terms of curricular context, this is very particular. This course is the first of two that students have to take in the first year of a specific BA. At the ITESO University, we have a new degree program that is translation and interpreting. And these two advanced courses are preparation for the rest of the program. It plays a foundational role because many subsequent courses will be taught in English. For example, intercultural mediation, literature, translation, and all the interpreting workshops that students are going to take are taught in English. Therefore, reaching a solid C1 level is crucial for these students and for their academic success. The overall goal of the course is to help them to function as interlinguistic mediator because that's what they're going to do when they graduate. So particularly in contexts that require high levels of accuracy and nuance in English. Okay. Now, as for the group, most of them, 17 out of 18 of the group, were enrolled in this BA. So they took all their classes, all their content courses together. They were one group. Only one student was taking my course as an elective. So all of them were in their first semester of this degree program. What else? Most of them, they're Mexican, Spanish speaking, and most of them have had, all of them, I would say, have had international experience traveling or taking short summer courses in abroad, either in Europe or in the United States. And they entered the university with a B2 level of English. It is a requirement for this specific degree program for students to be competent at B2 level. They have to prove it with a certification. While for the rest of the university, for the rest of the students, they don't have an English requirement at entrance point, but they need to reach a B2 level before they reach or before they complete 70% of their academic credits. So like in most universities in Mexico, I would say in all private universities in Mexico, there is an English requirement. Um, for us, the requirement is that students of any degree program attain a B2 level uh, before they graduate. And for this particular group of students, B2 level is entrance requirement. So overall, this course is really about supporting the transition from being competent users of English to becoming more advanced, more precise, and more professional communicators. You're muted, Adele.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a bit more about the objectives or?
Sure. Well, at the beginning of this planning process, Adele and I shared, Dr. Borallo and I, we go by first names. I hope you don't mind. Started talking about our specific objectives of our courses and how we saw this collaboration pertinent, right? So building on the context that I mentioned, for me, the purpose of integrating a COIL component in my course had to do with one particular aspect of this degree program. And it is that all the students, at least from this specific cohort, all of them and many of their teachers share the same linguistic and cultural background. We're all Mexican and we all speak Spanish as our first language. Well, there are some teachers that are European or speak another first language, but most of us share the same linguistic and cultural background. Therefore, it became essential to intentionally incorporate an intercultural and not just interlinguistic dimension into the course. For me, this is where COIL and dual immersion, which is another type of strategy, played a central role for these students in particular. These strategies, COIL and dual immersion, created opportunities for my students to interact with peers from other contexts, from different cultural and linguistic backgrounds in more authentic ways. And this helped them, that was the idea, to help them develop intercultural awareness, which is essential for their future work as translators. I wanted to expose the students to three key dimensions. One, the intercultural experience, like I said, also the linguistic experience, which is also crucial. They need to communicate and learn to do all these things and negotiate meaning in English, and also the experience of asynchronous remote collaboration. Okay, so these three key aspects of COIL, I think, were really pertinent for my students. These are not just academic skills, they are directly connected to what in our context we call competencias laborales or professional competencies that are required in almost any area of knowledge, but very specifically in the field of translation and interpreting. Working remotely, being agentive, navigating intercultural communication are everyday realities of this profession, and I would say of many other, but this one in particular. So when Adela shared her students' interest in exploring concepts of bilingualism or perceptions of bilingualism, I also saw a strong connection with my own context. In Mexico, despite the presence of many indigenous languages in bilingual speakers, this type of bilingualism is often invisible and not regarded as important, while English-Spanish bilingualism tends to have more prestige, right? And like I said, universities in Mexico have an English requirement, and even students who speak an indigenous language as first language, they are required to learn English as well, okay? So I felt that engaging my students in these discussions would not only support their language development, but also would encourage a more critical and reflective perspective on language, identity, power, etc. So when I read Adela's description of her course, I was completely interested in collaborating.
And I was so thankful, Esther, like from the very beginning. You've always been so generous with these ideas.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So on my end, the objectives were also three. On the one hand, I wanted my students to given the topic of my course, I wanted my students to explore their own linguistic journey and what's going on the other side of the border. So that was the first objective that I had. The second one, because my course also has a huge professional component, I wanted my students to also develop the competencies that have been identified by the National Association of Colleges and Employers as essential to be successful. The same thing that Esther just said, right? Communication, leadership, teamwork, technology, inclusion, and equity. All of those things were they're hugely important, and we wanted to spend time developing those. And finally, because FYS is a program that it's geared towards the global community, I actually wanted my students to connect with the global community. So these were sort of the objectives that the two of us had, a little bit different, but very similar in both cases. So let's talk a little bit about the beginning. Given the topic, in the past, I have done COIL before, and I'm currently doing COIL as well with Yarmouk University, because Shenandoah University has a beautiful, beautiful partnership with Yarmouk University. But given the topic of my course, this last semester, I really, really wanted to connect, ideally, with a Spanish-speaking country, and ideally with Mexico. That was my really, my dream, but I didn't know if it was going to happen. So what I did was to send emails. I had a colleague, a lovely colleague, Jason Schmidt in ITESO, Guadalajara. And I connected with him and I say, hey, Jason, do you know anybody who might want to collaborate with me? And he, lucky for us, there actually was a COIL coordinator in ITESO, and she quickly, Majo, Maria Jose Caselazo, if she ever watches this, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to you. And she quickly connected me with Esther, I think within 24 hours. So after that, it only took like 4 meetings for us to set up this whole COIL. We met in May, just to get to know each other and see if Esther was going, if she liked the idea of this COIL. In June, we made a few changes. We polished the project. In August, we met right before classes started to finalize it. And then we met in October again to make sure that everything was set up right before our project. So yeah, let's talk. Maybe we should talk more specifically about what we did and how we designed this project. Maybe we'll go to the next slide. No, the previous the previous one. Okay. So yeah. So one of the things that we really, really wanted to do was to establish connections. So we decided that for this COIL, we were going to start with a Zoom session where both classes would meet and we will present the project and the students will get to know each other and actually start working on the project. After that, we decided that we were going to ask students to do 2 asynchronous Padlets. And for those of you who are not familiar with Padlets, I will talk about them in a minute. And then we will close the project asking the students to do one more Padlet, but where they had to meet synchronously. So our project where, we had 4 things that they had to do. We had to meet via Zoom, both classes. Then they had to do 2 asynchronous Padlets, and then they had to do one final Padlet where they were expected to meet synchronously to do it. So we can go to the next one. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know what Padlet is, it's a beautiful platform. Esther introduced me to it, and I'm so thankful for it because it's a really a platform that allows to include a whole lot of stuff, images, videos, text, music, and it's really quite easy to collaborate on it. So thank you, Esther, for introducing us to Padlet. So for the first one, we asked students to make a video where they reflected about their own linguistic journey. And again, it's really interesting in my case where we have quite a few Latino students that do not speak Spanish. So that's always interesting to share. So yeah, they had to make that video, and then as a group, they had to respond to a prompt. In this case, we asked them to imagine that they were in charge of the education department in their countries, and what would be the suggestions that they would make to improve language learning. So that was the Padlet number 1, where they just had to work asynchronously after they met in our Zoom session. For the second Padlet, we wanted students to get to know both institutions and their lives. So what we asked them was to create a Padlet where they would share what their daily lives are like, what their work is like, schedules, what else, food, and so forth. So that what we have here now is a screenshot. These Padlets are actually quite rich, but you just have to scroll down. So that was Padlet number 2. And then for the final Padlet, students were supposed to meet synchronously and then as a group respond to another prompt. And this one, we wanted them to reflect about language perception in their own countries. What happened with this Padlet was that it was at the end of the semester, at the very, very end of the semester in ITESO, and it was during Thanksgiving and also the end of the semester for us. So we know that at least 2 groups did not meet synchronously. But I think the ironic part of all of this is that the groups that did not meet synchronously, I guess because of guilt, they actually created very pretty good Padlets. So this is actually an example of the naughty group that didn't meet synchronously because they couldn't find the time. And if you go to the next slide, this is an example of a group that actually met synchronously. I guess they felt so strongly that they've done such a good conversation that the Padlet was just that really as rich as the previous one. And I'm always fascinated by that little drawing. I'm still trying to decipher why was that drawing there. But I guess it just shows that they were having a ton of fun. So yeah, this is pretty much what we did. Stead, you want to talk about successes?
Sure. Well, as with any experience or human experience, there are things that work well and work as planned, and there are things that do not. And I would like to tell you a little bit about what went well. One element that worked particularly well, at least I got that from my students' feedback, was having a synchronous session in Zoom for them to meet, for them to talk casually about their backgrounds, about things that matter to them, etc. And they were able to reach out to each other, learn names, and make those first decisions as to when to meet the second time or who would create the Padlet board, etc. So that initial activity, I think it was suggested by Adela. I think it was great. Okay, I think it worked perfectly well. It facilitated interaction among the students. It allowed them to share videos easily and gave them a space to collaborate and create documents together and write together. They were able to build on each other's contributions. For my students, in preparation for this module, they read an article on ethnocentrism, and they had to reflect on expectations because that was one issue that they mentioned from the beginning. They were a little bit anxious about how all this collaborative work would go on. They were a little bit afraid of not being able to accomplish the tasks if they were not able to connect or communicate uh, effectively with their peers, and they were a little bit self-conscious about it. And so that preparation helped them. And I think on my end, reflecting about those issues and talking about those issues was one of the things that helped them in the end feel comfortable with whatever happened, right, during the process. It's like, do not take it personal. Not everybody will respond the way you expect them to respond or the way you would respond. So that previous discussion and reflection helped, I think. Another positive aspect, well, although in the first session, some students mentioned after it that in the breakout rooms, they did not all of them felt that they connected very well with everybody in their small group. But as long as they could find one person with whom they really talked, they felt that they connected, they were okay if there was at least one person who was interested. Now, most of them had a good experience. Very few of them mentioned that they did not feel that they were actually reaching out to the other person. They felt, and but there was at least that they assured me there was at least one person really interested in not just doing the task but in connecting. Some of them are friends now in Instagram, I think.
How phenomenal. That makes me so happy. So on my end, given that, given that my students were in their first semester on campus. So I felt that they were really enthusiastic. They were excited to be part of this, most of them, of course, right? And I feel like they did it to the best of their ability, given the situation that this course, again, it's pretty, that my FYS course has a lot of assignments that they have to complete. Actually, at the end of the semester, I always hold a civil dialogue where we talk about, hey, what are you taking away from this course, right? What have we learned that you think that is going to help you in your future? And quite a few of them during that dialogue mentioned the COIL experience as one that they feel that really will help them professionally, and also they will help them with inclusion and equity, which is very important to me and it's important to them. But I have to say that I think the successes that we enjoyed on my end are parts to the amazing work that my fellow Aurora Padilla Jimenez did. So I wanted to give her time to maybe share a little bit of what are some of the things that she did for this to work out at a difficult time for our students, and given the fact that they're all first year students. Aurora?
Yeah, so I was kind of there to help fill in any gaps that might show up along the way and along the process, and kind of be there as a facilitator between like the students and the faculty, and just be there to offer support for both sides in case they had any questions or anything like that. And I really worked on emphasizing communication between both sides, especially to make sure that students were kind of aware of deadlines, if they needed any clarification with the assignments and the instructions, and if they needed reminders or anything like that, especially because, as they mentioned, they were first years and it was their first time doing a project like this. So they might need like a bit more guidance and support. And some of the ways that I offered this support was kind of by creating group chats, creating calendar reminders, and working with Dr. Borrello Solis to create groups for the project and designating a group leader that would kind of be that point of contact in case they had any questions or needed any clarification or anything like that. And again, just kind of being there to offer support for both sides, faculty and students, and just kind of be there to, again, emphasize that communication, which played a crucial role in this project.
Yeah, Aurora, you were crucial for sure. Um, and so that's a part of the successes. But as we've mentioned, there were plenty of challenges as well. So when I think about the challenges, um, I think timing was definitely one of the issues that got on the way, because we all have different schedules. And I felt that maybe the beginning of the semester was just too early, right? When students get on campus and they have so much going on, it wasn't the right time for our students to do this COIL. We postponed it till the last part of the semester, but that was the time when my students had to do the most amount of work, and when final exams came about and holidays came about. So I feel like the timing was not perfect, but yet I'm still trying to find what a perfect timing is when we do these sort of collaborations. And another of the challenges that we found, or that I knew were happening, was that because this COIL collaboration is something that they do outside of the class. So I prepared them very well for the first Zoom connection, but after that, they had to do in their groups their asynchronous Padlets. I feel like at times some students forget. Like, it's not that they don't want to do it; they just simply forgot because they were so busy with so many other things. And in that respect, Aurora was absolutely crucial because she kept sending messages to them. She kept reminding them of the deadlines. So yeah, I don't know what I would have done without you, Aurora, because I know that happened. And it's not because students didn't want to do it. It's just because some of them forgot to do it. So having you reminding them was huge for me. Instead, your challenges?
Sure. One important lesson that I learned was that logistics really matter when you're collaborating online. And in this case, it was a mistake on my part. The instructions for the final task, I placed them within an assignment in our learning platform, in our VLE. I placed them in an assignment that had an extended deadline. So students were not aware until too late that they were about to pass the deadline. So students had to make last minute arrangements with their peers in Shenandoah to meet and complete their final product, which created unnecessary stress. This was already complicated, but in the end they did it. But yeah, they panicked. My students panicked when they realized that they were completely missing the deadline, and it was a mistake I made. Um, I think another significant challenge was, like Adela mentioned, the overall workload related to COIL, because it requires some extra work. And I agree with Adela when she says that reaching out, agreeing on a date to meet, remembering deadlines or keeping deadlines in mind is a big part of the challenge of collaborating online and internationally. However, it is part of the realities of students and professionals almost everywhere, and specifically for translators and interpreters. Um, and also, this particular group of students was simultaneously participating in other COIL collaboration, in other COIL project with a different subject. So yeah, it was complicated for them. Um, Besides exams, etc., because yeah, October, November are also the last months of the semester. So from the students' perspective, it became a little overwhelming. In their own words, they felt that it was too much at some point. However, they did it. They were able to complete the tasks, and that is something that also happens in real life. Okay, this should not happen. I mean, deadlines should be clear, and yeah, this mistake should not be made. However, it is sometimes being overwhelmed and having to accomplish a difficult task in record time is part of the realities of the profession.
And so, just to wrap up the presentation, we can talk about what we're taking away as I think it's up here. What we're taking away as faculty. Esther, I don't know if you want to start or you want to start.
Sure. For me, one of the most important changes, or something that this COIL module, or in which this COIL module has influenced my teaching, is that it reminds me that sometimes you have to, as a teacher, you have to let go a little bit of control and be more alert for opportunities, for learning opportunities. It pushed me a little bit to trust my students more, to trust their ability to navigate uncertainty, because I was there, but I wasn't there with them all the time. So they had to solve problems and respond to the unexpected and fix misunderstandings. And that is also part of the reality of communicating interculturally. Mm, I have also realized that when a project is well structured and well designed, students are capable of taking much more responsibility. They can make decisions, organize their time, take initiative, establish contact with their peers, negotiate meaning, and like I said, even clarifying misunderstandings is an important part that happens when you know the module is well designed and students have to come out and do things that they would normally not do in a face-to-face class where the teacher is there to to solve issues as they arise. Mm. Also, this type of experience encourages students to reflect on their own performance. So that was also something that I consider a benefit. I will try to promote more reflection and self-evaluation in my students, because these type of experiences also help them to collaborate, but also reflect on how they collaborate to evaluate their own performance.
Excellent. And on my end, these, participating in COIL, in this one, and actually in all of the ones that I'm doing, I'm actually enjoying two more this semester, and it's just getting better and better the more you do it. But what this one allowed me was to bring to life a topic that is really, really close to my heart, and also to share with my students a transformative experience that changed my life. So I'm the product of a study abroad, and I remember remember back in the day when I was learning languages in Spain, when I was way younger, all I had available to me was a book, and the book many times was just boring, and even in black and white. I'm old, so I remember being in the class thinking, I knew the history, I knew the culture, but I didn't know. I was so fascinated by these different people who are, who spoke these different languages. But my questions were like, I wonder what they listen to. I wonder what they eat. Will they understand me if I ever talk to them, right? And those questions never got answered. So I had to go and take myself physically to different countries to know the answers to those questions. And I know my students are very interested in cultures, in different cultures. But unfortunately, in many cases, they cannot travel abroad because of finances, schedules, and other things. So the fact that I can share with them this transformative experience, it's really meaningful to me as a faculty member. And I also truly, truly believe that, if we all were to expose our students to people who are different from them, who think differently from very young age, I think the world will be a better place. So I'm really committed to that. Because I think it's worked for me. So yeah, this is what I take away. What I take away is also a lot of fun and excitement. Again, even though this coil was not perfect, I know the ones that I'm doing right now, they're getting better and better and way more fun. So it was a great time. Oh,
All
and
right, great.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much, Della, Esther, and Aurora. Maybe we can all give a round of applause and our favorite Zoom reaction on their presentation. So many things resonate with me in your presentation. For instance, I love how you mentioned how COIL enhanced your learning objectives. So this is something we really emphasize at Shenandoah and the Brazilian Institute, that the COIL should not be an add-on or it is extra work, especially initially, but it should enhance what you're already teaching. So I love the idea about enhancing the English language teaching, also how people perceive languages differently. Also, I love the point about how the student Aurora really helped facilitate between the different classes. I've been fortunate to have mentors and student fellows in my classes when I do COIL, and they really help with the facilitation, whether the Padlet, the WhatsApp group, also the peer-to-peer interaction. And I haven't used Padlet before, but maybe I will after this presentation. But the Padlet was a nice way to have the collaboration. Really interested to see the prompts they use, just to see what you eat, how's your campus life. I loved how the picture, Adela, also, just you could see they're just having a fun time and sharing with one another. So with that, let's open up for questions and discussion. I think Annette had a couple of comments, some questions, and things to share, and then we can open up to others. So please.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Mirza. Yes, I find myself when I'm hearing about what the students do, I think about myself and my work, and if I'm a good employee and a good team member. So anyhow, I guess so we're always still learning. So I had a question in the chat about, and this was based on what Esther was saying, whether you think there's a lot of rich experience here for preparing for just working in general, especially on multicultural teams, just how workflow happens and how we just work online a lot together anyhow. I know especially I was kind of seeing maybe too, though you structure things, it's kind of like an unstructured work environment. And that's something also that employers say they're looking for graduates to be successful in. So just that and the time management and the trust building. So all that, just that if you wanted to share more, both of you, Adela and Esther. And of course, sorry, Aurora, too. Your perspective is key, right? You lived it.
Well, yes, in general, Annette, you're right. I agree with you. Professionals nowadays have to deal with uncertainty, have to deal with remote projects, have to deal with intercultural situations, and they have to deal with deadlines. And for us, specifically for this group of students, we know that the realities for translators and interpreters is that they are rarely employed full-time by a company. They have to create their own work opportunities. They have to create their own agencies. So they have to do all these things. They have to be able to be autonomous and be reflective and use metacognition and learn from their mistakes and do all these things and basically navigate uncertainty on a daily basis. And they have to learn to love it.
Yeah, and just adding a little bit more, in my classes, I'm very explicit about, and again, because the second part of the course is about language, professional success, I'm very open and explicit about, hey, we are going to be doing this, and you're going to get this, you're going to get to develop these skills. So I don't want to hear about excuses. I want you to develop resilience, and I want, so there's always, for me, I think one of the things that actually get them excited before the call is, of course, the project makes a lot of sense within the context of the course, but also they understand they all come to college because they want to have their dream career started, right? And being very explicit for the beginning, hey, this is not only about the content that we're going to explore, but also about the skills. So be resilient. There's going to be problems, there's going to be issues, and that's okay. We'll keep moving. So don't give up. I think for me, starting the coil with that gets them excited. Of course, because they're so young, and it's really interesting to see the difference between different groups of students. This coil was with a first year students who just came into the university, just, I always feel like, oh, like they do the best that they can. Right now, I'm working with two groups of students who have been around. They're seniors, juniors, they're majors in the Spanish, and you can really see the growth. Actually, some of the students did coil with me last semester. So even though they're first year students, now they're doing the second and third coil in their second semester, and the growth that you see, it's mind-blowing. Where at first last semester they felt lost, like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And now they're like, oh, okay, with this and that and the other thing. So it's really interesting to me to see how in just 1 year they are experiencing different coils, and the growth in professionalism. It's remarkable.
Great. And as people are thinking about questions, you can raise your hand, or you can also ask questions in the chat. So I see Aya, please.
It's not necessarily a question, but I wanted to just mention or like comment on what Adela said about how it's important for us as instructors to give our students the opportunity to connect with the other side of the planet, basically, without being without having the chance to leave the country. As she mentioned, there are different reasons why students are unable to travel around and get to know the world. But one thing that I really love about COIL, as she mentioned, is the students having this ability to know the other. And in one of our COILs, Adela had or suggested that students would like share one misconception or a stereotype about their country. And students were shocked that they're more alike than they thought they were. And it's so beautiful to see how like they realize that we have so much in common, even though we're worlds apart, and maybe a different religion, different race, whatever. It doesn't mean that at our core we're not like very much having a lot of things in common. And that's what I love to see. And I love that COIL gives our student this opportunity. When I was a student, I was like, you guys are so lucky because I didn't have the access that you guys have. And it's beautiful to be able to have it at a young age, as Annette also suggested, because this will help them when they start their careers to be able to connect with the other, even regardless of like the differences that they have, because they will always be able to find things in common. That's what I just wanted to share.
Yeah, Naya, and thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm privileged, highly, highly privileged to be collaborating with her in two coils this semester. And as you mentioned, introducing, right? I think introducing the coil is such a crucial element to do. And so it's really interesting because right now, I'm actually involved in two coils in a Spanish course. So even though I'm teaching a Spanish class, the students are not using Spanish in their coil, but they are so excited about it because we talk about the complexities of the world right now, all the stuff that it's going, and how valuable it is to connect individually, personally with these folks. And it's been like it's and quite a few of those students are actually doing two coils at the same time. But it's been so exciting and rewarding to see the level of excitement. We had our first Zoom synchronous meeting, and the students, the following day, the students just couldn't stop talking about, oh, and they say this, and they say that, and this and that, and the other thing. So as I get better at COIL myself, because I always blame it on me, right? If there's something that doesn't go well, it's because I didn't plan correctly. So as we learn how to do these things the same way they do, the results, what I'm seeing right now is that it gets better and better. So thank you, Aya, for all your work. And thank you, Esther, too.
Thank you. Thank you, Adela.
Yeah,
I had
other
a
thought.
question.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
please.
sorry.
Yeah, Nanda.
I had a question for anyone who wants to give feedback on this, but I had the privilege of studying abroad after learning language for 3 years at my school, and then I went for 5 months, like sort of between over 2 semesters, and then I came back after speaking and having to actually use that language with people like on the ground. And when I came back, my professor was like, "What the heck?" Like you, like he wasn't surprised by this, but my language developed a lot. And I think a lot of that was like being willing to just try to use it and kind of look like a fool and say the wrong thing and ask silly questions and use the wrong vocabulary word. And like, there's like a difference, right, between academic language learning and actually communicating with another human being. And I think in this case, it is like a language course. You've got students who are speaking both English and Spanish, um, or like largely English based on the Padlets, but still some level of like focus. Can you guys share about like how, whether it was like cultural familiarity and comfort or linguistic, like how they were able to feel more confident, like going forward with the course material?
I can check it. So on my end, I would imagine in case of Esther, there were the linguistic element was more prominent, right? In my case, they were using English, so there was not that growth in the language front. But I think it really meant a lot to bring to life. So my course is I actually love that course just because it brings so many unique experiences. So every single student in that class has had a different situation with their linguistic expectations, how they, what people, how, and I guess all of us do. But it's very prominent in that front. And I think for them to see what is going on in on the other side of the border, where many of them had connections, I think it was really powerful. And to also see that, what happens in this country with certain languages happens in Mexico with different languages. So even though it wasn't a linguistic growth on our side, just because they were using English, I think that we're also fascinated by how well they speak English. So that's something that I always love. So I loved it with Mexico, and I love it now with Jordan. Like they'd say, "Oh my goodness, like these people are so good with English." Like, yes, they are, as they should. I think I love languages, so I don't understand the resistance to learn many languages. So yeah, as a matter of fact, one of the things that really touched my heart, I've said this like 100 times. The last time we met with Jordan, just a couple of weeks ago, and at the end of our Zoom meeting, one of your students, Aya, was talking to me in Spanish, and I just melted. And when I told my students about it, because they had left the Zoom, when I told my students about it, they were like, "Oh my gosh!" And they also know Spanish. I'm like, yes, they do. They're fabulous. So that's on my end. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, on this side, yes, part of the goal was for them to experience the challenge of speaking with native speakers uh, and working on academic tasks. Mm, But something that happened and that I think was really beneficial for them is that although they feel rather confident in their English that they can, you know, get their point across and be understood, etc., they were surprised by the fact that they were sometimes, or that they felt that they were sometimes misunderstood. And having to fix that and trying not to feel bad, not too bad about it, but to do something about it to try to fix those misunderstandings was a great challenge for them. And that is something that, other strategies do not give them. We also do dual immersion, in which they get together for 40 minutes with a student in the United States, or in an English speaking country, and they have casual conversations for 20 minutes in Spanish, 20 minutes in English. But they're, you know, since they don't need to plan together, or make decisions together, or agree or disagree on issues, somehow communication flows nicely and nothing happens. There are no bumps on the road. But with these experiences, they are so rich that they do bring all these elements into the communication, right? Your cultural background, your expectations, and you have to navigate things and be able to fix things when they need to be fixed, right? And to think on your feet and go ahead. So yeah, it was a great gain, not only in the linguistic aspect, but also in the intercultural aspect.
Great. I see I raising your hand again, and
And if
Aurora
I
would love
add,
to hear from you also. Yeah.
real quick. So I share both Esther and Adela's experiences with my students. So there was a linguistic aspect to it, much like Esther, because my students' native language is Arabic. So there was this confidence of speaking to a native speaker, the challenges of getting the point across without being misunderstood and whatnot, and also the cultural aspect of getting to know the other and correcting misunderstandings about the other culture. But what I would add to that is the research aspect, because my one of my coil, I have two coils again with Adela. One of them is that they're doing like a collaboration on a topic that Adela picked the loneliness topic and I picked the binge scrolling topic, and they're doing a qualitative research survey, and they're first year students, and our students don't learn to do research until fourth year. So my students are learning how to do qualitative survey research at their first year. And I think this is an amazing experience that I didn't get to do until I was fourth year student. And I'm not even sure that they will be able to do it on the fourth year, because it depends on who's teaching that course, research writing. So they're getting a research experience that I think much of, if not all first year students, their peers would have gotten. So I think my students are very lucky in that aspect.
Yeah, I noticed that also with my students. We're doing a video project, and they said they actually learned a lot from the Yarmouk students on video editing and so forth. So it's not just about learning about the other and cultural diversity, but it's also learning new skills that maybe they're not learning at their home university. So that's great. So yeah, Aurora, let's hear from you. I know you've been listening and you have a lot to contribute as a student, and then we can move to conclude. So.
Yeah, I think what you all said really kind of summarizes kind of the impact that COIL has on students. I think it's very important to learn both about culture, the differences, the similarities, all that stuff, and kind of use all of that to navigate that kind of international interactive learning. And I think that plays a huge, huge role in kind of having that impact in students' lives, both professionally, personally, and academically. And I think it's a very valuable experience that they get to have.
All right, wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that. Aurora is our lead COIL student fellow, so she helps coordinate our student fellows. So thanks so much for your leadership here. And with that, let's ask Adela, is there any final thoughts before we conclude our webinar?
Yeah, I think for me, I would say if anybody's thinking about if anybody hasn't tried coil, this is something that, I hesitated for a while. I've seen some, Yunus shared with me back in the day some amazing, amazing, amazing impacting projects that, he's organized. And I was always intimidated. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do something so immense and marvelous. And I'm very, very glad that I started and I jump in the pool. It's kind of funny as you all were talking. I felt like sometimes we throw our students in the pool and say, "Hey, learn how to swim." That's how I learned how to swim, by the way. So it's for me, it's been great, and every time I do it, it gets greater and greater and greater. So I just want to thank both of my companions, all of my companions, Aurora, Esther, Aya. Thank you, Yunus, because I'm really, really happy that this is part of my teaching now.
Thank you. Well, on my part, the same thing, the invitation for you to try it. This was my first experience. And well, Adela's approach, Adela's generosity was really, really what helped me decide to join it. And I also thought that I expect my students to navigate uncertainties and to, like you just said, to jump in opportunities and try to do their best. And I had to do the same thing also, right, for them. So yeah, I would say try it.
All right, wonderful. That's a great place to stop. Maybe we can give one round of applause, final round of applause for our speakers. Thanks so much for all of you for being here, and I look forward to being in touch. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.